Chapter 14, Ham and Beans. One Monday morning, Mrs. Grossinger visited the fourth grade. She smiled at the children with her big white teeth. As president of your PTO, Parent Teacher Association, I'm pleased to announce that your class has won the school-wide Bean Around the World Geography Contest. Geography contest? Repeated Humphrey. What geography contest? I don't remember entering any geography contest. Mrs. Grossinger held up a worksheet bordered with pictures of grinning globes and dancing lima beans. Remember this, she said. The children looked puzzled. Then Calvin said, Wait, you mean we won that contest? Mrs. Grossinger nodded. The children looked even more puzzled. Weeks ago, the PTO president had delivered that very same piece of paper to their classroom. As part of the contest, she had explained you will be expected to work together as a class using encyclopedias, atlases, and other sources to answer the questions on this worksheet. But the fourth graders hadn't taken the contest seriously. Who wants to bother with an atlas? Lenny had asked. No one. Not even Stanford did. I'm much too busy studying for next month's juggling test to bother with some ridiculous contest, he had said. So instead of looking up the answers, the fourth graders had made them up. This is what they had turned in. Aesop Elementary PTO presents Bean Around the World Geography Contest. Please research and carefully answer the following. Which is the most slippery country? Answer, Greece. What language do they speak in Cuba? Answer, Cubic. What type of birds are found in Portugal? Answer, Portuguese. Where is the English Channel? Answer, between the Spanish and the French channels. Number 5. Name 3 famous poles. Answer, North, South, and Tad. Number 6. What are the Great Plains? Answer, the Concorde, the Stealth Fighter, and the 747. Number 7. Why is the Mississippi River so unusual? Answer, because it has 4 eyes but can't see. Number 8. What is the fastest country? Answer, Russia, because the people are always Russian. Number 9. Why is Alabama the smartest state in the USA? Answer, because it has 4 A's and 1 B. Number 10. What is the capital of South Dakota? Answer, Pierre. Now Mrs. Grossinger managed to smile even bigger. Congratulations, she said. You got the most answers right. Lenny waggled his eyebrows. How could that have been? Beans me, Bruce said. Does that mean we're superior beans? Missy said. Mrs. Grossinger's smile turned frosty. I'm bewildered, Jackie said. I've never been so confused, said Victoria. To bean or not to bean, Lil said. That is the queso. Mrs. Grossinger stopped smiling entirely, thumping a jar onto Mr. Jupiter's desk. Right between his walrus tusk and his Luganga pig mask, she snapped, Here's your prize, and stomped to the door. Been nice seeing you, Bernadette called after her. The door slammed. The children looked at their prize. Jelly beans, exclaimed Ham Sandwich from the very last seat in the very last row. I love, love, love jelly beans. Can we eat them now, Mr. Jupiter? Can we? Huh? Mr. Jupiter nodded. Each of you may come up and reach into the jar, he said. We'll start with the very first person in the very first row. Ham raised his hand. Mr. Jupiter, he whined, do we have to go front to back? Can't we go back to front just this once? Mr. Jupiter shook his head. No, Ham, we cannot. But I'll get my candy last, whined Ham again. Did you know, replied Mr. Jupiter, that in the Indonesian province of Budong, where I once raised Komodo dragons, it's considered an honor to be last? But what if there aren't any jelly beans left by the time I get my turn? Ham was whimpering now. What if there aren't enough? There's plenty for everyone, said Mr. Jupiter. Ham wasn't so sure. He nervously watched Bernadette go first. Reaching into the jar, she pulled out 8 jelly beans. 3 pink, 2 yellow, 2 purple, and a green. That's too many, he howled. Too many. Rachel went second. Shyly, she reached into the jar and picked out 2 orange jelly beans. Not the orange ones, Ham sobbed. Orange is my favorite color. Lil was third. Before helping herself to 1 green, 2 yellow, and 3 purple beans, she took a deep breath and waxed poetic. A jar full of jelly beans, so colorful and sweet, as lovely as a painting, and a very tasty treat. Hurry up, huh? Ham groaned. He wiped the drool from his lips. One by one, the 4th graders dipped their hands into the jar. One by one, they pulled out 4 jelly beans, 8 jelly beans, 14 jelly beans. Save some for me, Ham cried again and again. Save some for me. Finally, it was his turn. Hurrying up the aisle to Mr. Jupiter's desk, he thrust his pudgy hand into the jar and clutched as many as his fist could hold. 14 green, 10 red, 6 orange, 4 yellow, and 3 black. I got more than anyone else, he crowed. But when he tried to pull out his bulging fist, it was stuck, he wailed. I'm stuck. Oh dear, said Mr. Jupiter. That's a problem. Ham tugged and twisted. He pushed and pulled. He even tried tapping the jar on the edge of the desk, the way his mother did when she couldn't get the mayonnaise jar to open. Nothing worked. I want my jelly beans, wailed Ham. Try using your head, suggested Mr. Jupiter. Ham did. Thump. Ouch! He was still stuck. Call Mr. Swill, cried the boy. He'll know what to do. So Mr. Jupiter pressed the intercom button. Zzz-crack. Send Mr. Swill on the double, said Mr. Jupiter. Roger that, replied Mrs. Shorthand. Minutes later, the janitor arrived. He tapped the jar with his screwdriver and mopped around the area. But Ham was still stuck. Call Nurse Betadine, he cried. She'll know what to do. Zzz-crack. Nurse Betadine strode into the classroom. She took Ham's temperature and put a Band-Aid on the jar. But he was still stuck. Call Miss Turner, cried Ham. She'll know what to do. Zzz-crack. Miss Turner sashayed into the classroom. She spritzed the jar with perfume. Love's life sentence, said Victoria with an approving sniff, and read a chapter from the life of Melville Dewey. But Ham was still stuck. A tear trickled down his plump cheek. Life is so unfair, he moaned. I waited so long to get my hands on these jelly beans, and now... He gave a breathy sob. I'll never get to taste them. He watched, mouth watering, as Amisha popped a pink bean into her mouth. Good. Emberly munched on a yellow one. Yummy. Rachel licked an orange one. Pfft. Ham gave another sob. Then, from desperation, an idea grew. What if I dropped some jelly beans, he wondered. Just a few, just enough to pull my hand out. Slowly, carefully, he opened his fingers. 3 green beans rolled back into the jar. That should be enough, he muttered. But his hand was still stuck. He opened his fingers a little wider. 6 orange beans fell back into the jar. Not the orange ones, he moaned. They're my favorite. But his hand was still stuck. He opened his fingers a little bit wider still. Out fell 7 green, 8 red, and 3 yellow beans. And out popped his hand. I'm free, whooped Ham. Even better, in his palm he still held 4 green, 2 red, 1 yellow, and 3 black beans. Half a handful. Popping them into his mouth, he chewed, swallowed, sighed. Delicious. Then he looked longingly back at the jar. Can we have seconds, Mr. Jupiter? Can we, huh? Don't being ridiculous, replied Mr. Jupiter. Moral, half of a handful is better than none.